The Walking Dead is a season 2. We open on Rick speaking on his radio to Morgan, telling him all about his recent adventures, although he's not sure if Morgan can still hear him. After the CDC didn't work out, the gang have decided to try Fort Benning. They are heading along the highway and Daryl rides a motorbike now. And I am not very experienced in drawing motorbikes, but I'll give it my best shot. So, yep, that's sort of a thing. Anyway, they have to stop on the highway because it is filled with abandoned vehicles and whatnot. Dale asks Daryl if he can see a way through, and I still haven't figured out a consistent style to draw Dale, so it's going to continue to be pretty random. Sorry. Then the RV breaks down as they are trying to make their way through, so they decide to stop and look for a new radiator hose for it and any other stuff they can find. Laurie finds a dead person, and Carol finds a nice red dress, or possibly a shirt. It was kind of hard to see. She comments that Ed would have never let her wear something like that. He was a good husband. I wonder how he's doing. Shane finds a whole bunch of water. Then suddenly Rick spots a zombie, and then another, and then a whole horde, so they all hide under the cars because zombies can't go under cars. Probably. T-Dog accidentally slices his arm open, which causes him to have a bit of trouble running from the zomzoms. But then Daryl saves him. Andrea kills one inside the RV with a screwdriver. Good job, Andrea. But then 2 whole zombies start chasing Sophia, so Rick chases after her. He tells her to hide and wait for him, and if he doesn't return, head back to the highway. He then leads the 2 whole zombies off somewhere where he can kill them with a rock. Sophia immediately abandons her one whole job and wanders off. The gang start looking for her. Rick and Daryl start following her trail, and Shane and Glenn head back to tell Carol she has a stupid daughter, and Glenn doesn't have a striped shirt anymore, so thank God I don't have to draw that. Back at the highway, Carl finds an axe and goes to show Shane. Shane doesn't care. Laurie confronts him about this, and Shane says it doesn't matter because he's planning on leaving the group and doesn't like her anymore and thinks she's stupid and smells. Andrea then nags Dale about her dad's gun or something. Back to Rick and Daryl, they find a zombie and decide to check if it ate Sophia. It didn't, but it did eat a woodchuck, which as an Australian I can only assume is some sort of tiny kangaroo. Anyway, they make it back to the highway and tell Carol they couldn't find her. Carol gets upset and asks Rick how he could just leave her alone. Rick explains it was their best chance with 2 whole zombies on their tail. Everyone immediately understands. After all, it was 2 whole zombies. So they leave Sophia out there for the night to die, or continue already being dead. Who knows? The next morning they all head out for another look-see. Before they leave, Andrea nags Dale about her stupid gun again, and how she's sad she didn't get to explode. So they head off and explore some different places and stuff in a church or something, but still no Sophia, so they stop to rest. Andrea asks Shane if she can leave with him. He says he'll think about it, in a way. They decide to split up to make Carl easier to accidentally shoot. Rick, Shane and Carl keep on searching, and the rest of the gang head back to the highway. On their way back, Andrea nags Laurie about her stupid gun. Laurie decides to give in and finally gives her one. Andrea then gives it back because it wasn't the one she wanted. Anyway, then Carl gets accidentally shot by a deer. Through a deer. By Otis, who was hunting and didn't see Carl behind the deer. Somehow. We then flash back to pre-apocalypse. Laurie is talking with her super best buddy Paula about men not being able to argue and getting married too young and stuff. Anyway, then Shane pulls up and tells her about Rick getting shot into a coma. Then Laurie has to tell Carl about his dad. It's pretty sad. Meanwhile, back in the current time, Rick is running with a wounded Carl. Otis told him to go to a farmhouse where he lives, and a man named Hershel will help him. It's here that we are first introduced to Hershel and his family and friends. First off, we have Hershel, his daughters Maggie and Beth, Otis and his wife Patricia, and last but not least, holding a bat like a boss, Jimmy. Hershel and the gang get straight to work on trying to save Carl's life. In order to do so, they need more supplies, so Shane and Otis volunteer to go get them. Meanwhile, the others are making their way back to the RV. Andrea gets attacked by a zombie, but only has a knife to defend herself. If only she had a gun. Lol. Then Maggie turns up on a horse and baseball bats the zombie. She picks up Laurie to take back to Carl on the farm and tells the others how to find the farm. They make it back to the RV and tell the others about all the stuff. Daryl, Carol, Dale and Andrea decide to stay at the RV for the night to see if Sophia will hopefully show up. Glenn and T-Dog head for the farm. T-Dog's arm is getting worse, so Daryl gives him painkillers from Mel's stash. He also has blue meth from Breaking Bad, which apparently confirms that the two shows take place in the same universe, which makes you wonder, how many of the zombies have they killed were just meth heads? Anyway, Daryl and Andrea go have another look for Sophia. They don't find her. Dale gives Andrea her stupid gun back. At the farm, Rick and Hershel are talking about AIDS when Laurie and Maggie turn up on the horse. Rick takes Laurie to see Cole. Laurie and Rick comfort Cole by his bed and talk about the time Shane stole a chicken car or something in high school. I don't know, I wasn't listening. Rick and Laurie talk about if Jenna was perhaps right in blowing himself up. Rick disagrees. Then Glenn and Theodore Douglas arrive at the farm and meet Maggie. They fix up T-Dog's arm and Maggie and Glenn get to know each other. Shane and Otis make it to the place that had the medical supplies that they need. They find the supplies and attempt to escape but are getting overcrowded by the zombies. So Otis sacrifices himself to distract the zombies so Shane can escape with the supplies to save Carl's life. He arrives back at the farm and tells them that Otis died a hero. Hershel ends up saving Carl's life and Shane shaves his head in tribute to Otis's sacrifice because he was bald and stuff, and also wears Otis's clothes in tribute and takes his wife Patricia in tribute, maybe. The next day they have a funeral for Otis. Shane tells them of Otis's heroic sacrifice. Laurie then tells Shane she doesn't want him to leave. Maggie asks Glenn to go on a pharmacy run with Maggie. Daryl heads out to search for Sophia again, and Hershel tells Rick that his group can stay on the farm until Sophia is found and Carl is well enough to travel. He then changes his mind and says they can stay if they follow their rules. Maggie and Glenn head off on their pharmacy trip. They arrive at the pharmacy and Maggie does one sex on Glenn. Daryl returns. He once again did not find Sophia, but he found a nice flower for Carol. Carl wakes up and talks to Rick, so he gives him his hat and Laurie takes a pregnancy test and it's positive. Happy days! The next day, Rick gives the gang new areas to search for Sophia. And guess who wants to help? That's right, it's Jimmy. Yay. Rick and Shane are searching in the woods. Shane tells Rick that he thinks they're wasting their time still searching for Sophia, and that it's likely she's dead. Rick disagrees. Glenn asks Laurie if she has a baby in her. She says yes, but don't tell anyone because it is a secret baby. Rick shows up and tells Laurie he had a long, serious talk with Shane. Laurie has no idea what it could have been about. He tells her about the stuff with Shane and the things. Beth then turns up and says other stuff, so Rick goes and does stuff. Hershel says something horse-related and Jimmy, so Rick agrees. We then cut back to Daryl on a horse. He spots Sophia's doll, but then a snake spooks the horse and it throws Daryl off. He rolls down a hill and impales himself with one of his arrows. He tries climbing out, but isn't having much luck. Then Ghost Mel appears and does some more racism. So Daryl gets up and kills 2 zombies and makes a nice necklace out of their ears, which gives him the power to climb up the hill while Ghost Mel calls him a little girl. He makes it back to the farm and Andrea almost shoots him in the face. Shane and Rick have an argument about Sophia's doll. Then Maggie gives Glenn a note about where they should do naked stuff. He replies that they should do naked stuff in the barn. Glenn goes to the barn to find that it's full of zombies, which would make sex difficult. Maggie finds him. You weren't supposed to see this, and tells him to keep it a secret. Rick and Shane take some of the gang out to learn how to shoot. Cole wants to come, but Shane says no. Jimmy holds it side on because he's Jimmy. Andrea does good at shooting. Rick quips that she's probably ready for the advanced class. Shane enjoys this remark. Glenn tells Dale about the zombies in the barn and the babies in the lorry. Dale confronts Hershel about the barn walkers, and Hershel says no. Dale then confronts Laurie about the babies, and Laurie says yes. Rick finds out about the pregnancy and the Shane stuff. The next morning, Glenn tells everyone about the barn full of walkies. Walkers. They then get into a big argument over the walkers in the barn, and Sophia and all the stuff. Dale hides all the guns, but Shane finds them. Hershel and Jimmy teach Rick how to fill the barn with zombies. Shane spots him doing this and does a funny run. He then shoots the zombies that they bring back, and this upsets Jimmy. Shane then opens the barn and they shoot all the zombies. And guess who else was in there? It's Sophia. So Rick shoots her because she's a zombie now. It's very sad, and the episode ends.
Shane accuses them of knowing Sophia was in the barn the entire time. Hershel says they didn't, and that Otis must have put her in there without telling anyone, which means Otis must have found her pretty much straight after she was bit and turned, and then transported her back to the barn in time to shoot Cole the next morning after she went missing. Busy day for Otis. Very believable. Or Hershel did know she was in there the entire time. But probably not. Then Rick and Shane get into a big argument, and it's starting to look like they might not be best buddies anymore. Everyone is a bit sad about Sophia, but mostly Carol. You know, 'cause childbirth and stuff. They decide to bury all the bodies of the barn folk, and Shane tells Dale he's good at finding radiator hoses, which is a nice little moment between them finally. Or I may have misread the situation. Maggie tells Glenn their group will probably have to leave now after killing all the barn zombies. She asks Glenn if he would stay, and Glenn's not sure, but then Beth faints. She's gone a bit catatonic. They try to get Hershel to fix her, but he's disappeared. They suspect he's returned to his love of alcoholism. Shane then finds Carol and comforts her like the true leader he is blossoming into. But then Dale, filled with jealousy, suggests to Laurie that perhaps Otis did not sacrifice himself, and in fact it was Shane who killed him. We cut back to Beth, who is a vegetable now. So Laurie asks Daryl if he can also try find Hershel, but Daryl says no, so Laurie crashes a car. Glenn and Rick go look for Hershel, and Glenn tells Rick that Maggie said she loved him. Rick agrees. They find Hershel at a bar drinking one alcohol. He has finally realized that zombies are real and not just sick barn people. So Rick and Hershel argue about hope and if there is any left in this new world. When suddenly two people walk in the bar and want to know where the farm is, so Rick shoots them. They were also a bit grapey, if you know what I mean. Their buddies then show up and try to shoot Glenn, Rick and Hershel, so they shoot him back. One kid survives, so they bring him back to the barn for moral ambiguity reasons. Meanwhile, at Laurie's car crash, she is attacked by two whole zombies, so she kills them. Her first zombie kills, by the way. Shane finds her and takes her back to the farm, where Rick and the gang are, having already made it back, as Shane told Laurie when she was worried about that. The next morning, Rick, Glenn and Hershel make it back and get into an argument over the kid they brought back, who is called Randall. Shane is overjoyed to see a new face. Hershel goes and checks out Beth, who is still a Vegemite. She eventually wakes up and talks to Maggie about how all hope is gone and how she wishes to commit suicide. to unalive herself. Then Andrea shows up and encourages her to unalive herself, which she luckily fails at. Oh, Andrea, what will you do next? Rick and Shane take Randall out to the country to set him free, but he doesn't want to go, so they take him back to the farm and give him a little home in the barn. Sophia. The next day, Randall gets lots of visitors. It's a special day for him. He's going to live on a different farm with lots of other Randalls, where there's lots of room and he can run around and have fun all day. Meanwhile, Daryl is still living on the outskirts of the farm, which I hadn't mentioned yet, because he's not feeling like a big part of the gang. So Daryl goes to visit him and tells him that he is a big part of the gang. Then Carl calls Carol an idiot for believing in Jesus, who would not appear in the show until season 6. And they never actually speak to each other, so maybe he really did never exist. Anyway, he then goes and looks at Daryl's motorbike bike and steals a gun. He spots a zombie who is trapped, so he throws some rocks at it. Dale is going around telling everyone that they shouldn't send Randall to a different farm. Everyone disagrees. Later that night, Dale is attacked and badly bitten by a zombie, the same zombie that Carl was throwing rocks at. He tries throwing a rock at it again, but it's a bit too late. Daryl puts him out of his misery. It's pretty sad. The next day, they have a zombie killing montage to celebrate Dale's life or something. Shortly after, Shane and Rick have a small argument. Shane thinks Rick wants Daryl as his best buddy now and not him. Today is the day of Randall's big trip to a new farm. Shane is very excited for him. Shane then goes to say goodbye to him. He is overcome with emotion and hits himself in the head a few times and also points a gun at Randall. It is at this point he realizes there never was a different farm, and the gang were planning on killing Randall the entire time. It was all a lie. So he sets Randall free in the woods, but accidentally breaks his neck. Overcome with grief, he throws himself into a tree. So then Shane leads Rick out to a field to see if he'll let him have his wife and stuff, so Rick stabs him. It's pretty sad. Carl then kills zombie Shane. Rick and Carl head back to the farm only to realise a huge horde of walkers are following them. The rest of the gang are inside the house and see the walkers surrounding the farm. Rick and Carl hold up in the barn, but the walkers see them. So Rick opens the barn and distracts them while Carl sets them all on fire, which I'll try my best at animating. The rest of the gang arm up and get ready to shoot zombies and stuff. Daryl hops on his motor bicycle. Jimmy takes the RV. Maggie and Glenn take a car, and Andrea and T-Dog take another car. They drive around and shoot zombies together. Jimmy then parks it next to the barn to save Rick and Carl. Jimmy is then brutally eaten alive by the zombies. Oh, Jimmy, you died a hero, buddy. You may have only had a few lines in this show, but you had a few more in our hearts. Or something. And Patricia died. Then T-Dog and Andrea pull up to save Laurie, Carol, Beth, and Patricia. All right, she didn't die yet. Patricia is then brutally eaten alive. They all escape except Carol and Andrea, who are left behind. Hershel stays behind with his shotgun, ready to go down with his farm, and cows and stuff. Rick and Carol show up to save him, and then they leave the farm. Meanwhile, Daryl is watching the barn burn down, when suddenly he hears a scream. Maybe it's Jimmy. No, it's just Carol. He saves her and they ride away. Rick, Carl and Hershel go back to the highway. They wait around for 5 minutes and then decide everyone must be dead, so they leave. But then everyone turns up, except all the dead people. Beth asks what happened to Jimmy. Rick says Jimmy didn't just die a hero. He died as a symbol for a better world, a better America. Beth agrees. Meanwhile, Andrea is running from the zombies. She is then rescued by a mysterious person in a hood, with a samurai sword and 2 pet zombies, and it's Michonne. Rick then admits to Laurie that he killed Shane, and Carl killed zombie Shane. Laurie is upset her son is killing zombie stepdads. The gang then decide to camp for the night while they figure out what to do. Rick tells them all he killed Shane and they should send him a postcard and it's not a democracy anymore. They all agree and it pans up to show a prison, their new home. Next season on The Walking Dead.